I'm looking at your tweet promoting that you're going to be on the show, and it says, I'm hopping on with Laurence Holmes next to talk Bulls. So as to not upset Bulls Twitter, we'll only evaluate the first 5 games of the season when the Bulls were fully healthy. Sir, what do you mean?
I just get such a kick out of, I mean, Bulls Twitter right now is so mad, pointing out every single time someone talks about the Bulls losing a game and having weaknesses at this point. Well, they weren't full strength. Yeah, we know. No one on earth knows better that the Bulls haven't been at full strength other than the people who have covered them every single game since like the start of the year. We all know that, and it's unnecessary to point out the whole context thing. You got to take it with context. We know these guys are out. Billy Donovan says these things, and he gets praised to like high heavens, like, oh, Billy said the Bulls aren't battle tested enough. Man, what a coach. Absolutely incredible. He always shoots it straight. You go on the radio and say, I mean, Bernstein said this morning. I mean, I'm stealing Dan's line, basically. If a media member says that, they just get yelled at. But Billy says it, and he's a genius. Some things are just facts. This team is not battle tested. Zach LaVine hasn't played in a playoff game. Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White haven't played in playoff games. I think Javonte Green has 6 minutes of postseason experience. Nikola Vucevic has like 2 first-round series of postseason experience, and they were basically gentleman sweeps where his Magic weren't doing much against a 1 seed on the other side of the floor. Like, these guys have not been in big games. I thought Billy nailed it on the head last night. I loved his line, Lawrence. I don't know if you saw. He said really good teams dominate what they can control, and he doesn't feel like the Bulls really have been dominating anything that they can control lately, and he doesn't like how the guys on the floor are going about their business for long stretches when it comes to those details. So my point was, like, this Bulls team has holes in it. We know that Alex Caruso is going to fill some of those. Lonzo Ball is going to help address some of those weaknesses, but that's not a cure-all. Like, I guarantee it. And the Pat Williams stuff, like, again, bless his heart. I love the kid. I think he's going to be good. But Pat Williams, a 20-year-old being out for most of the year, is not an excuse for a lot of these things that are happening for the Bulls whatsoever. And I think when he comes back, you have to realize that he can come back and be another body and maybe help you on defense. But you can't have big expectations like Pat Williams is going to fix a lot of this stuff. I mean, he could be helpful, but this is just a team that has to face their reality, and the reality is they're not doing enough right now at the highest levels. As, to be honest, we've switched the goalposts, obviously, at the start of the year. If you would have said the Bulls are a number 2 team in the East this late in the season, I think people would be really happy. But given where they were and what they were doing at times, I mean, people moved on to the next thing, and that was, can this team be a serious championship competitor? And they've played a few stretches this season where they've shown that, and other times, specifically lately, they have not shown that whatsoever at all, and especially against good teams. So I'm just kind of over the Bulls aren't full strength. No one's ever full strength in the NBA after like the 5th game of the season.
And to be honest, last night the Heat weren't at full strength when the Bulls played them. And I know that it's hard to compare a lot of teams and their infrastructure to what Miami does, like the Heat way, and Eric Spoelstra, who I think is a coach that people don't give enough credit to for how good he is at his job. But what do you see as being like the differences between the way the Heat go about their business and the way the Bulls do?
Well, I think the Heat execute a lot better in the half court in many regards. And I think they probably just, and this is, I don't know if this gets a little cliche, but like they respect every inch of the floor a little more probably than it seems like the Bulls do when it gets to their spots. Like, again, DeMar didn't have a terrible shooting game last night when you look at 7 of 16 from the field, but it felt like they were pushing him off of his spots a little bit more than other teams have at times. So I thought like that was important in many ways. And the Heat just have that understanding of what it means to make the other team more uncomfortable when they're on defense. And that's just something the Bulls haven't, I don't think, paid enough attention to detail recently. And we know the Bulls defense has been pretty darn bad since Alex Caruso went out, obviously. And again, that is a big deal to provide the context of that with Alex and Lonzo out. But still, like, the Bulls just don't seem to take enough care in stopping the opposing point guard from getting to where they want to get to, whether that's the free throw line, into the lane, setting up lobs, stuff like that. They're not making these opposing teams go to plan B in many of their sets, it feels like. It's like screen roll, they get to where they want, and there's a shooter flanked out, or someone's going to the rim and creating contact, or they have the option for the lob, and the Bulls aren't recovering well enough, helping well enough. And some of that's defensive limitations with Vooch. He's not fleet of foot when it comes to lateral movement, so teams are going to take advantage of that. But again, that comes back to the guys at the point of attack too, and then the help defenders have to do a little bit more where they hedge a bit and then can still recover to their guy. And they're not doing that. And also, I thought the Bulls they haven't boxed out well enough lately. Like there were 3 or 4 times where you were watching guys like DeMar DeRozan, Javonte Green last night, Zach LaVine, like just not putting a body on anyone whatsoever. So it's stuff like that where I think the Heat are dialed in a little bit more than the Bulls. And I think the Bulls are eventually learning that lesson and will probably keep learning it here down the stretch as they face a fairly tough schedule coming up.
So that you can satisfy the folks on Bulls Twitter, what's the latest update on the injured Bulls?
Yeah, Alex Caruso and Pat Williams sound like they both need about 2 weeks to strengthen their wrist injuries still. Obviously, Pat's was a little more of focused on ligaments that he had surgery on, and Alex Caruso had the fractured wrist. But it does not sound like they are going to be cleared for contact or full-scale practice contact for at least 2 weeks. That would probably presumably have them at least another week after that needing a full scale of practice and contact, getting back in the flow and everything. The good news is their cardio and conditioning should be pretty good, but they got to have full trust in the wrist injuries to be able to do everything out there before they can return. So it still feels like to me you're looking at maybe late March for those guys at some point and getting them back and having maybe the Bulls have 10 games or so with the full scale of everyone. Lonzo Ball has his running, but he's doing basically straight line running, not doing side to side running. It seems like his 6 to 8 week timetable after his late January surgery is kind of the same thing, still on track for probably, it seems like, a latter half, late March return for Lonzo as well. I would note that those always, Laurence, feel like best case scenarios,
Yep.
Right? No one ever hardly moves anyone up like a week or 10 days in their returns at this point when it's been so long. So I would think getting these guys back in late March would be a good goal for the Bulls, that they would like to have those guys back.
I don't know if I've ever seen an injured player be more involved than Alex Caruso. Like he's fun to watch, like even on the bench.
Tristan Thompson or something, man. Like those two never stop talking. Like, I don't know, maybe the Bulls wanted to get Tristan Thompson in there in large part because of his communication. And I say that like half seriously, half joking, but like Billy has been frustrated by the Bulls' defensive communication sometimes. Like Tristan never stops talking and Alex Caruso never stops talking either, but Caruso obviously hasn't been on the court. He's been over there on the bench. It's helpful to have Tristan out there too. Those guys are just always jabbering about something. The other night, like I was chuckling because like Matt Thomas is like the 15th man on the Bulls roster, and Tristan Thompson was like talking his ear off. I think it was last Thursday at the United Center in his against the Hawks, and like never stopped talking. I'm like, what on earth could he be telling a guy who's like probably not going to play any role in this game? But these are veterans that see stuff on the floor and want to tell their teammates. And you've seen some of this too. I mean, if you want to be honest, like some of the Bulls' problems on the defensive end are just like you don't see screens coming. Like there's one last night where Javonte didn't call out a screen for Io, or Io didn't call out a screen for Javonte, and it was an easy lob for Jimmy Butler. So stuff like that, you understand what someone's voice can mean like that for an Alex Caruso type, in addition to their defensive prowess just on the floor. Anytime you can see something before it happens, it's so crucial, and he has that, and he's happy to yell about it off the bench even when he's not playing.
Cody, as always, thanks for the time, and I'm glad that you let loose a little bit today.
Oh, anytime, Laurence. We'll get these Bulls back to full health at some point and then see what they can really do.